So I'm a conservator, and it's my job to preserve old recordings and make them accessible for people. So this is the oldest format that we have. It's a cylinder, and essentially it's a lateral cut onto a cylinder, and it's played back with a stylus, which traces the lateral cut. And at its most basic, simple level, these analog recordings are simple copies of vibrations. So the louder somebody talks, the bigger the cut in the material, and so that's an Edison cylinder, invented by Thomas Edison and Company. And I guess after that came flat discs, like this 78 RPM, and so this is the sort of period from perhaps the 1920s through to the 1950s. And again, it's a lateral cut, and it's travelling at 78 RPM. Technology sort of evolves as time goes on, and in the mid-50s another format came out called Microgroove. It's just a smaller version of the same groove, so the mathematics, the measurements of the groove are smaller, and it's the basis of what people refer to as vinyl. So these are discs. This one is spinning at 45 revolutions per minute, and people just called it a 45. And this is where you got your song, your single song. If it was the Beatles, Please Please Me, it would be on one side of this disc. It would be, 3 minutes long or whatever. So that these were being used into the 1980s. And I suppose then CD comes into play, and there's different flavours of CD, and this is a CD-ROM. So, this is a CDR, a CD recordable, and yeah, it's a digital format, and but like all other formats, it's a technological thing. There are compromises in the technology, and at the time when people were selling this technology to get us all to buy CDs, it was the best thing since sliced bread, but really its life expectancy is not as great as was first thought. This format called DAT, digital audio tape, turned up in the late 80s as well, and this was the mastering format for CDs, and it's really a miniature videotape. Unfortunately, it has not been a very good preservation medium, and it was only ever 16-bit, 44.1 kilohertz in normal language. That's not the best quality, but it's the same quality as a CD. So they were mastering music onto this and then putting it on here. So for a long time, people thought that the quality of the CDs was not very good, and actually I think they were right. And now, of course, we've moved on to digital formats, and they are all digital files. So you can't really hold one of those up and show people, but yeah, technology keeps moving. With the lacquer discs, the big discs that I've been dealing with, yeah, one of the big ones is the chemical breakdown of the surface. So it's got an aluminium base, and then it's got the surface, and one of the ingredients is castor oil. What happens is over time it shrinks, and at a certain point then it starts to crack and craze, and after a while, if that process keeps going, the whole thing will start to fall apart, and it'll look like a jigsaw puzzle, and you can't preserve it anymore. So that's what we have to get to the discs and preserve them before they get to that state. The other typical problems that we see is dirt, and also mould. Mould's very common, and we're pretty careful with dealing with both those things to get rid of it through the cleaning process. And yeah, so they are the major problems. When we come to clean it, it's really a case of removing it from the old cover, which has usually got a lot of dirt in it. It might be acid paper. We'll keep in the information. We might treat it as a document if it's got a lot of writing on it, but we actually remove the cover. Then we clean the disc. We start off, the first machine is the ultrasound bath, and the very high frequency shakes out all the fine bits of accumulated rubbish that's got into the disc over the years. And then I put it on the turntable. If it's got this problem with the chemical breakdown, I use a chemical called ammonia hydroxide, and it's diluted so that it breaks down that deposit, and I might put it through a couple of times to clean it. And in the end, most of them come out, looking, perfectly clean and ready to preserve. The archive is temperature and humidity controlled. It's monitored. I've got 2 USB monitors, one inside a crate and one outside a crate. And yeah, every month I check the conditions, and we have a kind of a figures that we aim for, below 55% relative humidity and 19 degrees. So the archive is pretty much that all through the year. Yeah, so it's a process that we keep a close eye on. The problem with any media object, physical media object, is that if they heat up and cool down, and if they get damp or whatever, that will lead to a fast physical decay. Or if you leave a cassette, if people back in the day who had cassettes, leave one of these on the dashboard of your car, and probably if it's left there for more than a year or something, it will stop sounding very good. You'll still be able to play it back, but you'll lose all the top frequency stuff and it won't sound very good. Yeah, so the temperature and humidity controlled environment is the way to go for an archive. I've sat there and hovered over the disc player for 20 minutes or half an hour, getting quite cramped, holding my camel hair brush and caressing the cartridge over the groove to try and get every last little syllable out, and that's only halfway. Then the next bit is trying to edit it, and it does drive you crazy because those recordings are really, really noisy, and you have to turn it up really loud to hear what you're doing. And I've become quite skillful at editing noisy material, but you just find that little bit that's missing, and you've got to go back and find it on the disc again, record it, and then cut it in. And yeah, I mean, I don't have a specific story there, but I've done that quite a few times, and it's a real challenge. It is quite relatively slow. I mean, if I can get through 10 discs in a day, that would be a pretty good day. There's all the cleaning, and I'll sit there with my microscope as well, and with a carefully chiseled toothpick, pick out little tiny little bits of contamination just to get a clean playback. A major challenge is old technology. So we're dealing with old technology and new technology, and both of those are challenging. Keeping a 40-year-old turntable ticking over, finding parts for old equipment, it's a real challenge, and so we have to, spend a lot of time online communicating with other archivists and collectors and boffins, to try and source bits of equipment. Yeah, so the technology is a big challenge. I would think that's the greatest challenge is just dealing with technology. Once you've got it all working, it's a breeze.